Hey guys, so one of the things that I've been wanting to talk about is actually how, growing up Asian but in a Western sort of setting may have had conflicts. And definitely one of the conflicts that I've sort of had in terms of the culture clash is that whole parents versus passion aspect of it. I'm sure that you've had your own passions throughout the years, and that may not have necessarily aligned with what your parents wanted for you. And I think that that's always a really difficult sort of situation to bear when you are going through these kind of things, and especially during times like, at least for me right now, I'm in a weird stage because I am graduating, and sort of my parents always had this outlook that I would do something right away after I graduated and that I would go straight into career and start making money. And it's not that I don't understand where they're coming from, because of course school gives you a lot of debt. It's supposed to prepare you for a career, but that's sort of not necessarily where I'm at right now with what my plans are after graduation. As some of you may know, if you've seen my previous video, I do plan on going abroad after graduation to sort of just give it a try to live in a different country. And yeah, I think that that's sort of important for me to do that right after graduation, just because I think I've just spent so much time here. So I won't go into that too much, but I guess one of the things that I thought may be helpful is sort of talk about some of the ways I have tackled that situation with my parents. So just to give it some context for people who maybe aren't Asian and didn't grow up in this sort of a setting, and this is definitely things that I've taken from one of my previous classes. Usually in an Asian environment, collectivism is a really big aspect of the culture. So that usually entails like people making decisions as a group, and something like families making a decision as a group, because usually they perceive the situation and the consequence to impact the entire group. Now, if you look at a Western setting, in Canada and the United States, it's mostly encouraged for individuality. So that whole pursue your own dreams, pursue your own passions, you live your own life. It's important for you to do those things for yourself. And as you can see, that is a very, very big sort of discrepancy between the two. And that's sort of where this whole clash and conflict really comes from. Growing up, I've sort of encountered this situation more than once, whether it's for small decisions or big decisions. I've sort of compiled a few ways that I've decided to approach it now that I'm a little bit older and now that I communicate slightly better with my parents. So these are some of the things that I remind myself when I sort of have this situation turn up between my parents and I, and maybe this will be helpful for you too if this is something that you've been struggling with in terms of communicating with your parents. First things first, really talk it out with your parents. I would say not to approach it with any hostility, because that will probably end up with a slipper or two being thrown in your face and is not a great way to start a conversation. I think it's really important for your parents to actually understand sort of the rationale as to why you're pursuing that certain passion of yours. So for example, for me, I really wanted to go on exchange to Asia, and my parents were like, why are you going to Asia? There's no point of you doing that. We immigrated to Canada so that you could have an education, like a Western education. And I was like, okay, that's fair. But I thought it was important for me to gain some experience living on my own, to be fully independent. And I expressed that to my parents. I told them, I've been very lucky to have grown up with my parents and my siblings looking after me. I'm the youngest, so I can definitely say that I was very much carried throughout my entire childhood. And I told them, I think in order for me to fully appreciate some of the things I have, I need to go out there by myself and struggle. And as much as that was sort of a very strange concept for them, and at the end of the day, my parents didn't want me to struggle, they wanted me to be comfortable. I very much appreciate where they were coming from, but I wanted them to understand that I needed to do this for me. And, you know, that conversation actually allowed them to have some insight as to why I wanted to go away. It wasn't that I was just wanting to go away because I wanted to like party or not think about school, or that I wanted to run away from them. I think number one, really talking it out with your parents and giving them a very good reason as to why you're doing the thing that you want to do, that they don't want you to do. I think another thing to really keep in mind is to have a backup plan. Have a backup plan because it'll very much make your parents feel a lot better about that passion project that you're pursuing. So for my parents, I'm going to use the same example, which is my exchange example. I told them if I applied and I didn't get in, I'd just go to school here, no problem. I'll finish my degree as planned. I also told them that one of the locations that I applied to was Hong Kong, and my parents are from Hong Kong, and they felt a little better that if I was in Hong Kong, then they would be able to take care of me if they needed to and stuff like that. So I gave them those sort of backup plans to really make them aware that I've thought this through, that it's not just a spur of the moment sort of situation. And I think that really allowed them to have a lot more confidence in my decision as well. Another thing that's really important is to hear them out. Listen to what they have to say about it, because maybe you need to understand where their perspective is coming from as well. So for my parents, they of course were just wanting me to finish my degree as soon as possible because they thought, you know, getting out of school, that means getting out of debt earlier and being able to work right away so that I could pay off that debt. And that makes a lot of sense. I completely understood that. But I basically countered them by saying, you know, I think it would very much be beneficial for employers to see that I've had experience abroad and I've had experience being in a place that made me uncomfortable, because I think that that really makes me a strong candidate and allows me to showcase that I'm okay being in places where maybe there's some pressure or maybe there is a language barrier. You know, I wanted to say that being abroad in a different country where I don't necessarily speak the language can really sort of become an asset for me in the workplace afterwards. And after I said that to them, they were very much more on board with the idea than they were before. But I do want you to remember that at the end of the day, it's your life and you need to be satisfied with the consequences that come out from your decision. So whether that means pursuing your passion, or whether you think that it is more important to take into account what your parents are saying. Because I know that, you know, every situation is different, every decision is different. There are times where you should, you know, do your own thing, but there are times where you need to be considerate of your parents and their feelings, their opinions as well. And I think that's sort of a very fine line that you have to walk on, especially when you grow up Asian, but in a Western setting. Because I guarantee you, if you don't give it a shot now and maybe 5 or 10 years later, you start thinking about what if I had just done that thing? And even if you succeed or fail, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you tried it. And if you have that backup plan, it'll very much help in the case that maybe it doesn't work out. But if you try it and it works out, then run with it. Just keep going, keep seeing where it takes you. I think at the end of the day, your parents just want to see you succeed. And if you succeed in your passion project, I'm sure that they will have good things to say about that as well. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how much you've invested in maybe something else. There's something called the sunk cost fallacy, which is the fact that you think because you put in XYZ in it for so long, you think you might as well carry it out. My experience with that was when I switched from science to psychology. I thought that, oh, I'm already done 2 years of science, I'll just finish it, there's only 2 years to go. But then I really thought about it and I thought, I can't keep doing this degree. Science isn't for me, I don't see myself pursuing a career in it. Let's do something that at least I have fun learning about, and that was psychology for me. I get it, especially when things like money is involved, because, you know, education is expensive. It's very difficult to be able to balance the pros and cons with that. I know it is important to respect your parents' wishes, but they don't live your life. It's you. So if this is sort of the push you needed to pursue that passion project, then please go do it. So to sum it up, here are sort of my 5 things that I try to remind myself when I have the situation of passion versus parents. And the first one is to talk to them and explain your rationale, but with low hostility. Because you already know that with Asian parents, if they sense any disrespect right away, you know that it will not be heard whatever you say. Number 2 is to definitely hear them out. Be respectful of their opinions, but be ready to counter with anything they say. In that sense, again, with no hostility in your tone of voice at all, be ready to back it up as to why this experience will actually be more positive than they think. The third thing to keep in mind is to have a backup plan and make sure your parents are aware of that backup plan. And even incorporating aspects of their opinion / plan for you would be a great way to reach a compromise for you guys. The fourth thing is please give your passion project a shot. You owe it to yourself to do this and to not be regretting it in the future or questioning whether you have the ability to pursue this project. At the end of the day, that switch from science to psychology has been so beneficial for my university career in terms of mental health, in terms of GPA, so I'm very glad that I didn't let that sunk cost fallacy change my view on that. So this basically sums up what I have to say about this topic. I know everyone's experiences are extremely different. I was very fortunate to have older siblings that basically loosened up my parents a little bit and made them a little bit more open-minded to things that I wanted to do. I'm sure I'm not the only one who sort of approached this conversation with their parents, so please reach out, please let me know how things have worked out in the past for you in terms of communicating with your parents. Let me know if any of my tips have worked for you. I would love to hear your story. So this is my very first time doing a video like this where I sort of share my tips on things. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments down below. Please give me a like, and if you're enjoying my content, give me a subscribe as well. I will very much appreciate that. It's very important for us to respect our parents in our culture, so I completely understand where you're coming from. Just please know that you have my support, and talk with your friends, reach out to them, because I'm sure they have expertise to share as well.